Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to the Sports on the Positive Tip Podcast. This is the podcast where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. I'll be joined by my partner, Kenny Squared, in just a bit. Today, we've been joined by best-selling author, speaker, and publishing expert, Michelle Prince. And Michelle just openly shared about her faith. She shared also her story, which led to her helping others to share their stories. She shared about her time with Zig Ziglar, and she talked about the steps to shine through your story. And oh, by the way, she also talked about what's it like living in Dallas when the Cowboys just aren't winning. You don't want to miss a second of this. Let's get at it. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Sports on the Positive Tip Podcast. This is Kenny along with my partner, Kenny Squared. And this is where we like to have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. I have to tell you, it's going to be a lot of faith today. And we can't wait to get to our tremendous special guest. So I want to introduce best-selling author, speaker, and publishing expert, Michelle Prince, to the podcast today. Michelle, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it is great to have you. We want to learn so much about you and this wonderful book that you have. To start us off, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kenny.
All right. So first of all, I think it's really interesting that you talk a lot about stories. So we'd like to hear a little bit about your story and kind of how you came about on this journey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start professionally. I started my career working for Zig Ziglar. It's a long, crazy story I won't get into, but I had the opportunity to work for him pretty much right out of college. So that set the pace and the stage for me as far as my passions, what I love to do, and that was just a great way to enter corporate America. But then I ended up leaving Ziglar. I ended up quitting to go pursue technology, and I was in IT sales and software sales, and I went down a totally different path than my passion, because I was, young and maybe foolish, but chasing the money instead of my passion. And so, but it plays a huge part in my story today, because if I hadn't had done that, I wouldn't be on the show with you all today. But personally, my story, I have a wonderful family, my husband of 25 years, my two boys who are adult or men now, and, raised in the church and just grateful for all my blessings.
Wow.
Awesome. So yeah, obviously we mentioned best-selling writer. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
So yes. So my first book I wrote was in 2009, and it was called Winning in Life Now: How to Break Through to a Happier You. And it's a funny story because I never intended for anyone to read that book except for my kids when they were adults. I wrote it for them. I wanted them to just kind of know me, know my story. And that Zig Ziglar did write the foreword to that book. And that is really the book that kind of launched everything that I get to do today. And since then, I've written many other books. I wrote a book on productivity called Busy Being Busy, but Getting Nothing Done. And I wrote a couple books on helping people to tell their story, to leverage it, to either build a business, a ministry, build their platform, essentially. And then my latest book, which is launching April 18th, is a faith-based book called Shine Through Your Story.
Michelle, so tell us a little bit about, I'm sorry, I keep saying a little bit, and Kenny said that too. It doesn't have to be a little bit. Tell us a lot. Why is sharing your story so important? Why is that even important?
Well, we connect through stories. I mean, as people, we connect as human beings we want to know somebody's backstory. We want to know who they are, where they come from, what they believe in, what they stand for. And so that's how we connect, and from the beginning of time, that's how Jesus connected with people, was through stories and parables. And so I've never set out to help people to publish books. It's evolved to that, but really more of just, once you identify what your own story is, which I think is really hard for people, like, well, who am I? What do I have to say that matters? But the truth is, God's given us our stories, and your story is the combinations of the good, the bad, everything that's happened to you throughout your life and your experience with that. But when we share that with other people, that's when we can inspire others, we can give people hope, we can teach people, we can educate. So there's so much behind our stories. And I think a lot of times we hide behind it, like, oh, if they really knew what I've been through, what will they think? But I think the opposite. I think we crave authentic people. And when we know somebody's backstory, I just, that's how we connect. And that's how we help people.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's amazing. It's so true. This will be another question for me. I'll turn it back over to Kenny. And this is a little bit of a selfish question because I'm a little bit of a fanboy. What was it like working for Zig Ziglar?
Oh my gosh. And I love you that you asked that, because it was amazing. And he truly was one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. He was better than he appeared to be. Let me just put it that way. So on stage, and obviously he's full of life and excitement. And
yes,
but he loved people. First and foremost, he loved Jesus, and he loved his wife, and he loved his family, and then he loved what he did. And so I just got to see behind the scenes, just a man of integrity, always putting other people first. And I learned so much from him. But of course, how awesome to be around such a positive person. And we were, at the time I worked there, it was a fairly large company, but still small enough that we could all interact. There were about 80 of us. And Mr. Ziglar would walk through the building and just stop at everybody's cubicle and just ask, how you doing? What's new? Tell me about your family. And I'll share one more thing about this, that this I think sums up everything about this man. Every Christmas morning, this is long before cell phones and all that, he would call every single employee in the morning around the time his grandkids were opening gifts and all of that. And he would call each of us just to thank us. And he would say, I can't do this. I couldn't do what I'm doing without you. So thank you. He would do that for the person working in the warehouse, the person in sales, everyone. And he meant it. So that's just.
Wow. Yeah. It's so funny because before I knew that he was a man of faith, I spent a long time with Sprint, and he came in to speak at a conference once, and it blew me away, blew everybody away. But I was very new in my walk, and I said, there's something about this guy. I never got a chance to ask him that day because there was just too many people around him. But and this is probably a good 20 years ago or so. But I know there was just something there that you knew. And I think that whenever you can pick up on somebody's, faith vibe without them saying it, then that's a God thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'll add one thing to that. So he didn't become a Christian until his mid 40s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and when later, and that's actually, he'll tell you, if he were still living, that's from that moment on, he never solicited a speaking engagement. He had people coming to him.
Yes.
And he would do these seminars called Born to Win. And it was a 3-day event, and people would always, want to know the secret of Zig's success. And so at the one of the days, he's like, if you really want to know the secret to my success, we're doing a bonus session tonight, totally optional. I'll share with you the secret to my success. And it was his testimony.
Wow.
It was awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Hey, Kenny.
Yeah. I think even just talking about Zig Ziglar, I see like kind of the power of storytelling in general. Something I was thinking about earlier is like, there's a lot of people out there, like, born and raised in the church, and they don't really have like those like very dramatic testimonies. So like that, like they didn't see like this amazing thing happen to them. What's a great way for someone like that to tell their story?
That's so great question, because I think that's most of us, right? I was raised in the church as well, but it's kind of a journey that I was on with God. The way I look at it is there's just no ordinary story, right? Because we all play a part in the bigger story, his story. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be this grand, like, oh my gosh, this massive thing happened to me, and this is why you should listen to my story. I think it's more in the simplicity sometimes too, that, to just know that, our lives are kind of shaped by what happens to us. But it doesn't have to be something. I hear this all the time, because people will say to me, because I'll, tell them what I do, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't have anything to say. It's like, I guarantee you do. And even if what you have to say is only intended for one person, and maybe that one person lives in your house, then it's still worth sharing. So going back to your faith journey, if it's still worth sharing, right? Because we're supposed to share our stories of God and how he's been faithful in our lives. It doesn't have to be this mountaintop experience that got you there.
Wow. Yeah, and that's so true, because like I didn't even think of like, even if it's someone within your own household, like you never know who you can truly impact just by even just being authentic about who you are and how God brought you from point A to point B. Because there is a lot. There can definitely be a lot in there.
And it's also kind of who you be. Sorry to interrupt you on that.
No, you're good.
One thing, and Zig actually would say this, it's not so much about a book or writing it. It's kind of more of who you become as a result of sharing your story. And I've seen that firsthand in my own life, that when you have the courage, because it does take courage to be open and vulnerable with your story, you change. You see that, wow, you know what? God really used me in this season of my life. And wow, had I not been through this, how could I be encouraging this person now? So it's who you become, I think.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Because like there's so many different things of like ways that we can become different people. And like you never know how someone can be impacted just by hearing your story, and how they can avoid a lot of pitfalls.
Yes.
So can you share more about your SHINE formula? Because I know you have the acronym SHINE. I think that would be really interesting to kind of talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm super excited about this because it's, like I said, it's a book I'm launching in April, and it is my testimony, and it is my story of, my journey through life, but it's also helping people to really see that their story is a gift, right? And that this gifts, what are we supposed to do with gifts? We're supposed to give them away. So in the SHINE formula, it walks somebody through the process of figuring out, well, what is my story? What are my gifts? What on earth am I here to do? What is my purpose? And then eventually, encouraging people to shine a little bit brighter. But the acronym goes like this. S stands for sow your seeds of greatness, which means figuring out what has God put inside of you that you didn't earn, but you were born with. Those gifts, those talents, those things that you take for granted. What are the things you could share with the world? H is honor your story. So that's all about, no matter what you've been through in life, your story is your story. Can't change it. Why not use it to help someone else, to give someone hope or understanding? And so kind of walk people through, how do you identify that story, and then how do you share it? The I is identify what's holding you back. Because if you're anything like me, there's times when your mind just gets cluttered with negativity or fear or doubt, and so procrastination, right? So identify, well, why are you not shining as bright as you could? Why are you not being used in a way that maybe God's calling you to be used? And then the N is, now is the time to write your story. And I'm not encouraging people to write a book per se, but there's something that happens when you go from thoughts to putting it on paper. I love journaling. I believe that that's, for me, it's a catalyst for me hearing from God. So I talk a lot about that process. And then the E is encourage and equip others to do the same. Because something happens when we step out in faith and boldness and shine, no matter what people think. It encourages other people to do the same. Almost subconsciously, you're allowing other people to do it too, because they think, wow, if he could do it, I can do it. And that's how we encourage and equip other believers.
Wow. That is awesome. I loved every second of that. I think we lost Kenny for a second. Here he is back. I loved every second of that. I want to go back down the road you were getting ready to go down, Michelle, before. And what are some practical steps after I've told my story?
Okay.
I can remember, I'm a cancer survivor. This is not about us. We want to hear about you, but just briefly, after I told my story, this is validating everything you're saying, by the way, just me saying this real quick. After I told that story the first time, my testimony from being in stage 4 and the 3 years of fighting it and surviving and thriving all these years later, I just felt the need once I felt the freedom, I guess, to then do something about it and started a ministry and everything like that, right? So, but that was just my story. Everybody's is different. But in general, what's one or two practical things that you can do after you've told your story? And maybe in some cases it's nothing, but
Yeah.
I would imagine once you've had the freedom of telling it, that there's freedom that comes along with that.
Oh my gosh, totally. And even something you said, this is not about me. This is about we tend to do that with our stories, don't we? We tend to be like, yeah, but I don't want to make it about me. But the whole point of sharing our stories is it's not about
Yeah.
us. It's
Yeah.
because somebody out there is sitting in a chemo chair right now
Yes.
and they desperately need to know that somebody else got through it. And so but practically, how do you continue that? Obviously, I'm a publisher. I do believe writing a book is one of the best ways to get your story out there, because people will throw away a book. They won't, or they'll throw away your business card. They won't throw away your book. So, it's something that people value. But beyond even just writing it in a book, it could be that maybe you want to start a community group in your church or in your neighborhood to share that. And I'll use you, Kenny, if you don't mind, as the example of the ministry that you now have the opportunity to share because you've been through something like that. It could be in a book so people could read it. It could be on podcasts like you're doing. It could be in a blog. It could be, you could go out and speak to other groups on what you went through. There's just no limit to what you could do with your story. It's kind of like we help a lot of people too with building their platforms. And what I mean by platform isn't about like, oh, look at me, look how great I am, but it's a platform gives you the ability for other people to want to hear what you have to say. So, and the way you do that is multiple channels. And you all, I love that you're podcasting. Podcasting is one of my favorite ways to get your story out there, because people, again, why is podcasting so popular? Because we love stories. We want to know what people are doing, how they got there, and how they can learn from them.
Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome advice. Awesome advice. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, are we switching to sports now, or do we want to talk a couple more?
I got one or two more.
I have a couple more questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. Sports can wait.
Yeah, we'll wait on that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, the interviewing or trying to help people build their stories and their brand.
Uh-oh. You're breaking up just a little bit, Ken.
Me.
Yep, we got you now.
What do you think are one of the biggest challenges to kind of identify what their story is?
So I may have missed the first part of the question, but
Okay.
I think what if you're asking. So what is
so like what?
Go ahead.
So yeah, what are like the biggest challenges that you think people have when it comes to telling their story?
Well, a lot of it is that, the head junk of who do I think I am, putting myself out there, or nobody's going to care, or what if they don't like it? And that is honest to God, one of the biggest hurdles. It was for me for a long time before I decided to do it. But beyond that, I think some people don't know what to do. They don't know how to. So they think, maybe publishing, I'll use publishing the book as an example. Maybe the only way I can write a book is if I get picked up by a publisher. Well, that's just not true. You can publish a book on your own is just as well as working with a large publisher. So sometimes it's not knowing, but we're in an age of the information age. So anything you really want to learn, you can find on Google. So that one's not as much. If I had to say one thing, I think it's really more internal versus external of why people don't share their stories. Fear. Don't want to be judged. Don't want people to think like, oh gosh, especially if you're faith-based, I don't want to offend people, or it's head junk.
Yeah, head junk. I like that. I like that. And it's terrible how that affects so many of us. I've got one last question on this. I want to ask for you to describe to the audience what a shine circle is.
Oh, sure. So this is something that I'm pulling together. I've been teaching a workshop called Book Bound for 13 years now, believe it or not. And it teaches people everything they need to know to write a book, publish a book, and market a book. And it's awesome, and I love those events. However, the Shine Circle is a little bit different. It's more intimate. It's less learning and more growing together. But it is still, we come together and help each other to identify their story, get it out of their head onto paper. It is also faith-based. So, it's really digging deeper into what is your purpose? What is God calling you to? And then how can you create something that, will have a lasting impact in the world. And so it's a group of like-minded people that are coming together to circle around each other and help each other just to be all that they're already created to be. Sometimes we need other people to help us do that, though.
Yeah, we need that encouragement, right? Yeah. We need that the body of Christ is there for us, for a reason, and we need to encourage others. I love that. That is so awesome. So awesome. I don't know, Ken, unless you have any other questions, we could maybe pepper a few minutes of sports in here.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Kenny, unless you have questions.
Yeah, but that's okay. He might have froze again. So I'm going to start. And so now you're in Dallas. You said that your husband, your two sons are huge sports fans. Huge. And so the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, and I go back a long way. I'm a Jet fan. Kenny's a Giants fan. Yeah. But the Cowboys have been a little disappointing for a little while now, but especially these last couple of years. Oh, yeah. How would you say your household has handled, what I thought was another disappointing year? Because I really felt like they have the talent, or they had the talent to go to the Super Bowl. What's the feeling like, number one, in your household, and what's the feeling like there in Dallas?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it spot on. I mean, everyone, if you live in Dallas, you love the Cowboys. I mean, of course, there's some that are from other states too, and they have their, but yeah, it is America's team. It's Texas team for sure. And everybody's disappointed, right? It's funny. I think back to the last time, and I'm not going to get this right, but the last time they were in the Super Bowl was in the 90s. I don't remember exactly the year.
You're right. Yeah.
But that was a big time here. And I remember this is before I got married, and we're around a lot of sports fans, but I remember just the energy was so electric. Yeah. And that's been missing for a long, long, long time. Yeah. But do people still love them? Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine. I can remember, I'll share this with you real quick. It was sometime in the thousands, and they changed coaches. They fired their coach. It might have been when they brought in Bill Parcells or something like that. But I happened to be in Dallas on business. And that was every news station. They interrupted everything. It was like a special. See, that would never happen here in New York. But there, it was like big. It was like 8 o'clock at night. They interrupted Law and Order. We have a special bulletin. The Cowboys.
Jimmy Johnson is no longer in. Yeah, exactly. No, I know.
Yeah, that's how big they are down there.
And everything that Dak does, or anybody, it's just everywhere. So amazing. And I am interested enough, but not like, I don't live and die yet. But truthfully, I think I mentioned this before the show. My boys are 23 and 19, and my husband die hard too. So if I want to spend some good quality time, we go to a Mavericks game, a Stars game, a Cowboy game. We'll go to any sporting event. So
okay. All right. That's awesome. And the Dallas Stars have been pretty good over the years. Yeah. And the Mavericks have got two superstars now. Yeah. But not doing too well since they got them both. But it's still, we're not to the playoffs yet. Kenny, you still there?
Yeah. I don't know. Video's acting weird, but
that's
I'm
okay.
Here.
Yeah. Quick question. Go ahead.
Well, just kind of regarding the Mavericks, how's the reception been with Kyrie Irving? Because I know, at least in New York, like, it's been a little tenuous. Also here in Cleveland, when he left, it was weird. Have they really embraced them?
I'm not sure. I think everybody still misses Dirk.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'll speak for myself there. I mean, everyone loved Dirk. So there's definitely, I feel like we were at a game actually on Christmas Day, and it definitely just felt different. All the years we'd been going and Dirk was there, he just had such a huge presence. So to answer your question, I'm not sure, because I haven't heard a lot of like fanfare in the way it always was when Dirk was there.
Yeah, boy, don't they have a statue, right, of him outside the arena?
Yeah. They just a couple months ago, I think, put it up, and it was, in fact, I think we were there the night that they unveiled it. Like I said, we try to go to a lot of games.
Yeah, wow, he was a wonderful player, wonderful player.
Person too, from what was shown, from what I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Michelle, this has been just so awesome, so inspiring. I know I'll speak for Kenny. I know I'm filled up, man. This has just been fantastic. Before we let you go though, and we'll post it all over the place, but how can people get in touch with you?
Well, if you want to learn more about the Shine book, it's shinethroughyourstory.com. And there's a bunch of resources on there that are intended to just encourage you in your walk with God. One of them is you can get a free access to a text messaging service where you get a daily personalized scripture sent to you every morning. And that and some other ideas to help you journal and pray and a couple other things. So really, I encourage you to go there and download those free resources. I'm also on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, probably the most. And I would love to connect to anybody that wants to talk.
That's awesome. We'll make sure that that information is right out there. This has been spectacular. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. You are quite an inspiration. God bless you and what you're doing, and just continue to do it. And we can't wait for the book to come out. Both of us are going to make sure we get it, and we'll read through it, and certainly encourage folks that we know in our circles to purchase it as well. So, it's our pleasure. Kenny, you want to take us home?
Yeah, this is Kenny Squared End.
And Kenny and Michelle.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you guys next time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.